Welcome to Adaptations 2.6. So this is the definition here of an adaptation. An adaptation is an inherited physical or behavioral trait that has evolved over time, and it's because of natural selection. This should not be a new term to us, but an adaptation will help improve the survival of the organism. That's the main point of it and what's going on. So there's the two kinds, the structural and the behavioral. So structural adaptations include special body parts, maybe it's got a different color or a special shape or body covering like polar bear fur. Or it could be a behavior, what the animal does, how it acts, so like hiding at night to come out. Those are adaptations that have ensured survival of certain organisms. Little fun facts down here, an organism usually has more than one adaptation, and sometimes the structural and behavioral adaptations can complement each other, which means they go together and make it a better advantage for that organism to survive. So how do these organisms adapt to their environment? So there's short-term and long-term. Some short-term adaptations, that's something that's temporary, something they need to do for a little amount of time. Maybe there's a small change in the environment. It's not something that's inherited, so the DNA does not change, and it doesn't really play a part in evolution. So something like this polar bear hibernating, this bat sleeping upside down in the cave, is something they do to survive in their environment, but it's not like built into their DNA, and it's not something they inherit. These long-term adaptations, however, those are more permanent. It's something that's happened in the environment, and the organism had to adapt these changes. So they have inherited it. It does involve DNA, and it is a piece of the whole evolutionary process. So like here's an example with the polar bear over here. Okay, so a little review on natural selection and what it is. So natural selection is how a species ensures it's going to continue on. So a lot of times we just think about the one individual, usually ourselves, but in nature, nature on purpose overproduces how many individuals are in a species, more than can actually make it to maturity to ensure that some of them make it to maturity. And there's a lot of variation because not knowing what life is going to deal, what's going to happen in the future, you need to have variety to ensure that these individuals have some kind of characteristic that can be different to help them survive an event. Maybe, I don't know, some kind of predator comes and they only like a certain skin color, so these guys get to survive. Or maybe something happens where a weather event happens and only some of them have the trait that can let them survive. So nature selects, that's what this selection part is, those individuals that have the traits that allow it to survive this environmental circumstance, and they can survive longer. If you survive, you get to reproduce. If you get to reproduce, you pass on the traits that you had that let you survive, and then that goes to the species more. So that's what natural selection is. And over time, they adapt, and you get adaptation. So those traits survive and reproduce more, and it's more and more common in the population. So over time, this adaptation happens due to natural selection or a change in the DNA, the structure, and the makeup. There's also artificial selection, which is something that humans do. So that's 100% human caused. So like all of our cute little dogs we have, this is the best one, all of our cute little dogs we have come from the wolf, but humans took certain features of certain wolves and kept breeding for that, and this is how we've ended up with our dogs. Same with different plants. So this little plant right here, we artificially selected, and now we have cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, and kale. Why do we want kale? But anyways, that all came from one original ancestor plant, and we just bred and bred and bred until we got these other things that we wanted for our foods. All right, so signs of evolution, evidence of evolution are in the fossil record. So if you look throughout history, you can see slow changes in fossils and how they looked. So here's an example of the horse. We started with this first ancestor that's 0.4 meters high. Then there's one that's a little larger. Notice how the teeth have slowly changed, how the bone structure has slowly changed. And it always happens in these small increments. And that's all how evolution happens. A little tiny gradual change, slow. Takes a very, very long time. So one way we track in science how these changes happen is through this phylogenetic tree, and it helps us see where things were related to each other and where they kind of branch off and start becoming different. So the closer a branch is like this, these are more closely related. So the elephant is more closely related to the kangaroo, and the similarity here is they give live births. The platypus is related because it's a mammal. It has mammary glands and hair. The crocodile splits off here. Doesn't have hair or mammary glands. It has this egg. But if we were going to look at this, the platypus and the crocodile are more related than the platypus and elephant because it's 2 divisions away. So the platypus's 2 common ancestors are kangaroo, 1 up, and crocodile, 1 down. So that's kind of how a phylogenetic tree works. So the angelfish, its most distant relative would be the elephant for down here. So you can see why. It doesn't have 4 legs, doesn't do this ammonite egg, doesn't have hair, mammary glands, or give live births. Boom. Okay. Okay, so these changes in the environment, they could be sudden or they can be gradual, but they can both threaten the ability for a species to survive. So sudden things like the earthquakes, like we have in California, landslide from a big storm, lightning and fire, floods, volcanoes, those are all things that just come suddenly. Things that happen slowly or gradually. Global warming. We're getting slowly warmer and warmer and warmer. Ocean acidification. The pH of the ocean is lowering slowly, gradually. Plate tectonics. Those are moving just an inch a year. So slow and gradual, but it will affect the climate eventually when the plates are moving around on different spots on the ocean. So environmental change can cause extinction, but there's like a long game and a short game of that. Okay, so as a species, you kind of have these 3 choices. Alter your behavior, which is adapt, move, immigrate, get out of there, or die. You're done. Those are kind of the 3 choices. So think about these things. If you're a plant, you kind of have different options than like if you're a little animal. Don't laugh. This is some kind of animal. I don't know what kind. But an animal could move. A plant can't always move, but they could alter their behavior or what's going on. And if they can't, then they're going to die. Is it reasonable to think that plants and animals can just do these changes? No. Are they aware they need to do these choices? Maybe. Probably not. So this is a whole like natural selection genetic thing. So that's kind of what adaptations are all about. So if you have a lot of a species, hopefully with a lot of genetic variation, something in one of them or 2 of them are going to allow survival so that species can reproduce and keep going generation after generation. And that's pretty much what adaptation is. Yay! Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.